Ladies and gentlemen, our top lead this evening is a story with a clock ticking on it. As we speak, a Titanic search operation is underway in the dark blue depths of the Atlantic Ocean, depths that are unfathomable to the human mind. In line are the lives of 3 billionaires, a renowned French ocean diver, and the owner of the craft on which they were on board. The 5 adventure enthusiasts took a dive into the ocean 4 days ago to explore the Titanic wreckage, which lies at a depth of 12,500 feet. Imagine that. But they are yet to surface. Their small submersible called Titan, worth $1 billion, lost contact with the surface ship that was with them. This happened 105 minutes into the dive. It's been 4 days and the clock is ticking. There are just about 18 hours of oxygen left in Titan. And Titan, mind you, is barely the size of a minivan. In the depths of the ocean, it's dark and it's very cold. With oxygen running out, survival is a challenge. They can't escape because the craft they are in is dead-bolted with 17 deadbolts that seal the submersible. It can only be unlocked from outside. Point is, they need to be found and found very soon because it's either get to the surface or die. For the rescuers and searchers, the location, of course, is the biggest challenge. The Titanic wreckage lies around 12,000 feet below sea level. That is about 10 times the height of the Empire State Building. The iconic ocean liner, the Titanic, as you know, had sunk more than a century ago. Over the years, its wreckage has become a bit of a tourist spot for the rich, for historians, and for explorers as well. Today, as we speak, it is the focus of a multinational search operation. The US Navy and Coast Guard and the Canadian Navy and Coast Guard are using cutting-edge assets to detect any sign of the Titan. The Canadian Navy has a P-8 Poseidon in the sky, an aircraft that specializes in detecting submarines underwater. The French and British have joined in these search operations as well. Also helping in the search is the Polar Prince, the Canadian research vessel that had transported this ill-fated submersible to the Titanic wreckage site. On day 4, that is today, there was some sign from deep inside the ocean. US authorities say that banging noises were heard at half-hour intervals for about 4 hours. This happened on Tuesday. But beyond that, there has been no forward movement. Question is, despite the world's most powerful navies deployed for the last 4 days, why has the search not gone anywhere? For a moment, look at the place where the search is on. It's in the depth of the Atlantic Ocean. There is no sunlight there. There is no GPS there. It's a bit like looking for something in outer space. More than 12,000 square miles have already been searched. Importantly, finding the submersible is one thing, but rescuing it will be another. For instance, the US Navy's nuclear-powered submarines usually operate at 800 feet or less, meaning they can't dive down to the ocean floor where water pressure on the submarine hull could make it implode. Essentially, options for rescue vessels are limited. But a French vessel equipped with a robo that can dive to the depths we are talking about could be the last hope. It's on its way to the Atlantic as we speak. Ladies and gentlemen, then there is also the baggage of history. The deepest ever underwater rescue was that of Roger Chapman and Roger Mallinson, who were rescued from the Pisces 3 submersible at depths of 1,575 feet. This was in 1973. They were trapped for 76 hours before finally being pulled to the surface. The Titanic wreckage, as we've just told you, is much, much deeper. It's sitting nearly at 13,000 feet below sea level. Essentially, search and rescue ops at these depths have never been attempted before. Now, a ticket to see the Titanic wreckage does not come cheap. It costs a whopping $250,000 or roughly over 2 crore rupees. The submersible is manned by Stockton Rush, OceanGate's CEO, the company which runs these Titanic voyages. Mr. Rush started the company in 2009 with an aim to give customers a chance to explore deep-sea travel and made the first expedition in 2021, which is 2 years ago. On board is also a Pakistani-British billionaire called Shehzad Dawood and his 19-year-old son, Suleiman. Belonging to one of the richest families in Pakistan, Shehzada is a supporter of 2 charities founded by King Charles. Renowned French Navy diver Paul Henry is also on board the submersible. Nicknamed Mr. Titanic, Paul Henry was part of the first expedition that explored the Titanic wreckage way back in 1987. He has done more than 35 dives to the spot since then. He's 77, and he had famously said, when you're very deep in water, you are dead before you realize it, so it's not a problem. The last passenger on board the Titan is British billionaire and adventure junkie Hamish Harding, who runs a Dubai-based jet dealership called Action Aviation. Harding has completed several exploration activities, including flying into space in 2022. Now, the disappearance of the Titan has prompted a major discussion around the safety of deep-sea tourism, obviously. But here's the point. There had been enough warnings about OceanGate's Titanic dive. The Marine Technology Society, for example, 5 years ago, had raised concerns about the experimental approach of the Titanic trip. It had penned a letter to Rush, the missing CEO, warning of potential negative outcomes that would have serious consequences for everyone in the industry. 2 of OceanGate's own employees had brought up safety concerns around the hull of the submersible. One of them was sacked. Then, 2 years ago, OceanGate had boasted in court about the Titan's unparalleled safety features, saying it had been built with the University of Washington's Applied Physics Laboratory. But here's the catch. The university denied the claim and said the lab had never dealt with the design, engineering, or testing of the Titan. Importantly, the one being quoted the most right now is the CBS science reporter by the name of David Pogue. He had taken a trip on the same submersible that is now missing and had raised red flags post his trip. The biggest, during his own trip, the craft had lost contact with the surface ship for 2.5 hours. It was then, he says, that an emergency beacon was discussed. Pogue's video that he had put out 6 months ago on Twitter, reading and signing off on the indemnity bond, is now viral. Take a look.
Service. An experimental submersible vessel that has not been approved or certified by any regulatory body and could result in physical injury, disability, emotional trauma, or death. Where do I sign? Oh,
Take your shoes off, that's customary.
okay. Wow.
Inside, the sub has about as much room as a minivan.
So this is not your grandfather's submersible. We only have one button, that's it. It should be like an elevator. You know, it shouldn't take a lot of skill.
The Titan is the only 5-person sub in the world that can reach Titanic depths, 2.4 miles below the sea. It's also the only one with a toilet, sort of. And yet, I couldn't help noticing how many pieces of this sub seemed improvised.
We can use these off-the-shelf components.
I got these from Camper World. We run the whole thing with this game controller.
Come on!
Let me go across to my guests who are joining me this evening. They'll help us put the story in perspective and tell us what exactly, and help us understand what exactly is going on right now. Professor Alistair Greig is Professor of Marine Engineering, University College London. Professor, thank you very much. Dr. GA Ramadass is Director at the National Institute of Ocean Technology. He is with us on the broadcast as well. And Commodore A J Singh is a submariner, a veteran of the Indian Navy. Commodore A J Singh, let me come to you first. Now, it's been 4 days. We do not know if the 5 people on board the Titan are alive or not. But if they are, and one hopes they are and one prays they are, What are they going through right now?
Well, I think the first thing would be a very deep sense of distress. They see the inevitable. They've not received any help so far. If they are at the bottom of the sea, alive or not, one doesn't know what is the condition of the submersible. It could be stuck at the seabed on something. It's not been detected. And oxygen is fast running out. In fact, 96 hours would probably be the optimum amount of oxygen the vessel carries. Perhaps with people in panic, people would be breathing a lot more. Oxygen could be running out a lot faster than 96 hours that are predicted. And I think the most important thing is that the cramped conditions, this is not even like a submarine, it's a submersible. They say it's a minivan. You're actually sitting around. You don't even have a berth or a bunk, which means that tiredness would set in. Some amount of panic would set in. If they've had an electrical failure, it would be dark inside. It would be bitterly cold inside. So one really doesn't know, firstly, whether they're alive. And if they're alive, which I hope they are, then they would be in a very deep sense of hopelessness, if I may put it that way. I'm sorry to sound pessimistic, but that's the real fact of...
It's been 4 days. There's the baggage of history because search and rescue operations at these depths have not been done before. You said that there is a difference between a submarine and a submersible. There's a big difference, in fact, between a submarine and a submersible. Could you just quickly tell our viewers what that is as we put those graphics out?
A submarine, as we understand it, is basically a platform which is used by navies. It is a system of systems. It is designed to operate at certain depths for long periods of time. It carries a crew of many more people than a submersible does. Whereas these submersibles are designed for special research underwater. That's why they're designed to go to those depths. Submarines don't go to those kind of depths. As you brought out, a nuclear submarine probably goes to 800 feet. Nothing below that. We are talking of 12 to 13,000 feet. Therefore, the ability for submarine rescue systems also to reach that depth are very remote. There would hardly be any submarine rescue systems or ROVs or submersibles that could even be sent down to that depth to recover people if they are. And what is scary, and I'm surprised, is that the vessel is bolted from the outside. I mean, so obviously 17 bolts.
17 dead bolts.
Obviously it is so that as the pressure increases, the hatch exerts more pressure on the hull, and so the chances of a leakage reduce. But in submarines, we never dead bolted from outside. We shut the hatches from inside. All the hatches close inwards for the same reason, but the human being inside has control over the hatch to carry out an escape. Of course, in this case, even if they could open that hatch and escape from 13,000 feet, if they came out into the water, they'd shoot to the surface. And it is unlikely that they'd be alive when they would reach the surface at 13,000 feet if they're escaping.
It's a scary situation to be in right now.
Either the and are floating around on the surface somewhere. But there's a massive surface search going on looking for them. They haven't found them yet. The other is that they've gone to the bottom of the sea, which makes it even more difficult for them to be rescued. It sounds very pessimistic, it sounds very distressing, but that is the fact of being in a submarine underwater. The depths can be very unforgiving. We often say in submarines that submarines are safe until you forget that they can be dangerous. So that is something that everyone must keep in mind.
In this case, the British naval captain, former British naval captain who's also on board, a veteran diver, 77 years old, before making this trip had said that if you are, if something goes wrong, deep down in those depths, you are dead before you even know it.
Being a former submariner, knew what happens if you go down to that.
Knew what was coming. Dr. GA Ramadass, if I could just bring you into the conversation, in the last 17 to 18 hours, what we have been told by way of US authorities is that there has been some sort of banging noise that has been picked up by a Canadian Poseidon from under the water. And these bangings have happened every half hour. What does it mean? Could it mean that there are people inside who are banging banging within the submersible? Is that what it means? Or does it mean that the submersible is entangled with something and is banging with that something every half hour? And does it hold out any hope?
I know that this situation is very bleak, but still I'm hopeful. That means generally, three scenarios are possible. One scenario is that there is an electrical and electronic failure, so they are not able to communicate with the mothership, but still it's mechanically intact and they're trapped there. Okay, and generally the submersible surface by deballasting or dropping some weights. They are not able to do it because of the electrical and electronic failure. In such cases, they are still alive and they may be making noises. But in second case is that there is a communication failure but they could surface, but drifted away from the ship. Okay, so they are not able to open the hatch because it's bolted from outside. Or then also they can make this kind of noises. Third one is there is a catastrophic failure, mechanical failure, and there is no hope. In that case, it can be, the noise can be from actually the vessel actually banging to some kind of structure or seabed or something like that. But what surprises me is that why half an hour? If they're alive, they will be desperate and they will be making the noises so that they can be heard very frequently. But I don't know actually now. This is half an hour, once in half an hour making noise. Really, it surprises me. But it's not unheard of. As you were mentioning about Pisces in 1973, the stricken as aquanauts were making this kind of noises with the hope that somebody would be there to hear them, and people heard them and they were rescued. Okay, so it is possible that they are alive, but let us hope so.
Let's hope they are alive. Professor Greig, thank you very much for being part of this broadcast from London. I want to ask you how you assess the 4-day search and rescue operation that has gone on. It has not met with much success. Do you think all is lost? Or do you think there is something that could be holding out hope? I know that as we speak, there's a French craft that is on its way with a robot, which can actually dive to the depths that we are talking about, 13,000 feet. But even if that robot manages to locate the submersible Titan, point is, how do you mount a rescue operation?
Okay, hello everyone. The sound is dropping in and out, but I'll do my best. So first of all, the search is very challenging because, as we've been told, they've got the search on the surface and on the seabed for something that's quite small. And if it's on the surface, it's not floating on the surface, it's floating just at the surface, which makes it more difficult to locate. If it's on the seabed, 4,000 meters down, that is going to be extremely difficult to find. We don't know what seabed looks like exactly, whether it's smooth or it's cluttered. But of course, there will also be a lot of debris from the Titanic itself, which could be confusing the picture. The noises they've heard, the fact that they are regular and is a good sign, as opposed to something that could be naturally occurring, because that would be more likely to be random. And they do have on board someone who has a lot of diving experience, so he will know the procedures, what to signal. So hopefully that is what they are detecting.
Come in here, yeah.
I think one thing that surprises me when you describe the incident as it happened is that the boat dived at about 8 o'clock in the morning. It lost communication by 9:45 with the mothership. It must have been because it takes about 2 hours to go down to the maximum depth, it would have crossed halfway. But from what I've read in the media, the first report that reached ashore was at 1500, almost 6 hours later, at the time when she should actually have been coming up. That means for 6 hours, they had no communication with the submersible. And was there no sense of concern? Was there no sense of panic? And as you described, this has happened before.
It's happened before.
So all the more reason why they should have been that much more careful, that if they've lost contact, there is something to be alarmed about. Because the most basic thing you would do with a vessel going down like this is to maintain continuous contact and not let it. And if one does lose contact, then alert the authorities so that a search, if required, can be mounted immediately. The second aspect is, did this vessel, which has not come out in the media at least, does this vessel have any kind of a buoy or a beacon which it releases to the surface in case it's in trouble, which can flash a light? All submarines have an emergency indicator buoy.
So I can tell you this. The CBS science reporter who was on board this craft not very long ago said, as you rightly pointed out, that when he was down under, the submersible had lost contact with the surface ship. And it was only then that the talk of a beacon started, an emergency beacon started. So clearly, it wasn't there at least till 6 months ago. I'm not sure if it is there right now. Very jugaad way of building a submersible, I
agree,
would say.
because if there's a beacon, at least it flashes. Where the boat is, where that submersible has gone down, it comes to the surface, it flashes a light or some sort of indication. Submarines have all submarines have something called an emergency indicator buoy. In the event of a submarine sinking, it can release that buoy. That buoy has a beacon. It has a sound signal. It has pipes leading which can supply air to a submarine. Of course, the depths are not, we are not talking of 12 and 13,000 feet. We are probably talking of 500, 600, 700, 800 feet. But the fact of the matter is that certain safety, basic safety features should have been incorporated. If they were incorporated, they obviously didn't work. And if they were not incorporated, I think it needs to be examined why they were not incorporated. And I think this whole concept of this sort of adventure tourism in vessels like these needs to be re-examined.
Professor Greig, would you want to come in here? There were red flags. I mean, this is not the time for a blame game. One completely understands that because there is a search and rescue operation underway. The lives of 5 men are at stake. But the fact is that there were enough and more red flags. That is something that, that a little bit of research will tell us. That is something that a CBS science reporter who was on board this craft barely 6 months ago has told us as well. Is it your sense that these red flags were willfully ignored?
I have no idea about those, whether they were ignored or not. I'm sure that this will come out in the inquiry. I do know that quite a lot of fail-safe devices were incorporated for certainly discharging the drop weight. So even to a very basic one by just rolling the submarine to get it to roll off. So that will certainly thought through in the design, as the other aspects I'm not with the design or the issues to be able to say something at the moment.
Dr. Ramadass, could you help our viewers understand, what the conditions at sea are or oceans are when a rescue operation of this scale is mounted, and what are the factors that influence it? I'm assuming weather will be, come to think of it, the most powerful navies in the world, the United States of America, Canada, are currently deployed in the Atlantic Ocean. They've been looking for the submersible for the last 4 days. You have the French and the British who are pitching in as well. Many people will ask, if you have so many cutting edge assets that are deployed, what's the difficulty? What's the difficulty in at least locating where the submersible has gone? After all, you know the general location. After all, it is somewhere near the wreckage of the Titanic that we are seeing on our screens. So if you know the rough location, what is the problem?
We had the experience of searching for a lost torpedo at around 200 meters water depth. It didn't have any beacon, any live beacon. So if there is a live beacon, acoustic live beacon on the submersible, it is easy to locate. Otherwise, there is nothing to really look for. And actually underwater, anyway, it's dark. Actually, you can't have any lights and other things. But one thing is, your ship, however mighty it is, it should be equipped with either a multi-beam sonar or side scan sonar of that 4,000 meters range. Okay, even then the resolution very, very small. It is looking for a needle in the haystack without any live finger. That's why it is important to have some kind of acoustic transmitter or a pinger on the submersible, or as Commodore Singh was saying, at least there should be some pop-up buoy which can really pop up when the sub is really stricken, actually. So without these two things, actually, the might of the navies or actually the size of the ship doesn't matter, whether it has the right equipment, whether it has the right sonar, whether it has a multi-beam sonar or side scan sonar, or it has got any remotely operated vehicle which can go to those depths. Okay, without that, it's really looking for a needle in the haystack.
And the National Institute of Ocean Technology, sir, the organization you represent and are a director at, is also, I believe, building a submersible. After what has happened to the Titan, are there some lessons you're taking away as well?
Actually, actually, we have learned our lessons much earlier, because this is not the first time that a sub is like actually we're stuck at the bottom. Actually, as you are saying, actually this is the book, No Time on Our Side. It really chronicles actually very well how the sub can be stuck at the bottom. But we have taken our precautions, and we have a certification agency, DNVGL, to certify each and every step we take. And we have triple redundancies. That's why I'm surprised actually to find that there is no redundant systems on this sub.
Before we go, I just again want to talk about the situation in the submersible right now. It's obviously not big. It's like a minivan. Everyone is sitting on the floor around each other. Yes. There is a very small toilet. And while food and water may not be a problem, may or may not be a problem, oxygen is certainly going to be a problem. Now we are being told that there is less than 24 hours of oxygen supply that is left in the submersible, in the Titan. Given the way rescue operations, search operations have been mounted, do you think that these 5 men can be saved? I believe there is a French ship that is on its way carrying that robot that we are talking about that can actually dive to the depths of 13,000 feet, or at least till where the wreckage of the Titanic is. But that's still some 24 hours away.
Firstly, that French robot or ROV, remotely operated vehicle, even if it arrives and goes down and is able to detect the Titan, which has not been detected so far, that will just be the beginning of the rescue operation or the search operation. It's not the culmination. Then would begin the challenge of how to raise it. They obviously can't open the hatches at 13,000 feet. The challenge of raising it to the surface, opening the hatches, and then seeing what the state of people inside is. So that is not something that's going to happen so easily. We don't know what the weather is like. Of course, before this expedition was mounted, the weather was very bad apparently. I think one of the explorers, Mr. Harding, had even said that this is one of the worst winters Newfoundland has had. We've got just this one window, and this will be the only dive of 2023. If that be the case, we still don't know whether the weather is good. The sea may be choppy. If the sea is choppy, it will be that much more difficult for the ROV to be lowered, for this vessel, even if it is detected, to be raised up to the surface. So it's going to be a huge challenge. And pardon my again, I repeat my pessimism, while I hope for the best, and I do hope that these people can be rescued, the chances are looking increasingly grim.
We'll see how things go, because the next 24 hours are going to be crucial. Commodore A J Singh, thank you very much for joining us here on the broadcast. I'm also going to thank my other guests. Dr. Ramadass, thank you very much for being here. And Professor Greig, Alistair Greig, thank you. Thank you for your time here on Mirror Now. Thank you so much. Let's see how these rescue operations, search operations before rescue operations go on. For the moment, I'm slipping into a quick break on the show. There's much more coming up on the other side. Do stay with us.